all getting the word out, because the whole nurse burnout thing, it's a real problem. And it's not just nurses, it's healthcare industry in general. It's your surgeons, your physicians, your nurses, your techs, your ancillary personnel as well. It's really, I think the healthcare is so toxic right now that it's really a huge disservice to people. So it's about re-educating people. Instead of giving their power away to something outside of themselves, is to take that power back within themselves and listen to your inner knowingness, because we have all the answers. It's like sometimes we don't trust that gut, that gut feeling or that voice, and it's like we doubt it, when in fact that's our inner barometer as to what's next for us, if we just are brave enough to listen to it and reconnect to it.
Do you think that might be one of the major contributors to this terrible burnout that nurses experience?
I think if that's part of it. I also feel that there's a strong component of a lot of healthcare providers. They have a tendency to be empaths, intuitives, and highly sensitive people. And that kind of group of people are very special. The way I say that is that they were born here to help humanity evolve, because we're in a planet where people don't feel, and they're the extreme of feeling. So they're teaching humanity how to be more aware of feelings. And, they've been labeled like they're too sensitive, or, they take things too seriously. No, they just feel things at a greater depth. Now, their detriment sometimes is that it actually could work against them, meaning that they're always struggling or trying to survive, versus as to know how to work with it and thrive. And I help people do that, because I've lived through that. I know how to maneuver people through that. That's been my whole life. And yeah, it's a lifelong struggle. It's a dance. It's about knowing yourself so well that if it's not a hell yes, you're not excited about it, don't do it. How many times we do something and we show up half-baked?
Yeah.
So what does it present? Half-baked, because everybody feels that energy to some degree, and that affects everything. So, sometimes it's not, sometimes for people who are in the healthcare profession, they think it's their job to fix people, and that's typical behavior of an empath. And they take people's stuff on as their own and try to fix it for them. And that's where I believe a lot of that burnout comes into play. So if people are wise enough to, or I think everybody gets to the point where they hit their wall. It's just like, I've had enough. It's like, but hopefully we'll get to that wall before you create a physical illness for yourself. And I think a lot of autoimmune issues are because of that. Because people are trying to fix, energetically, they're taking on other people's energy and they're incorporating it within themselves, thinking that it's theirs, when in essence it's not, and then they try to heal it for other people. So that, I think, is a real strong component. And it's just like, okay, so how do we fix that? And my solution to that is, we're such in an environment where we've been taught that you always have to be in motion to be productive member of society. Okay, you always have to be doing, analyzing things to death. We do that in worry and frustration and stress. That's just a stressor. And over time, it just takes a hold of you, and it creates a fatigue. And then, people start getting sick. It's like and it's a little more on the ego side too, because it's like we think we need to figure things out, when in essence, all you need to do is just allow yourself to be. And that's, what people say is sometimes a polar opposite, doing versus being. It's not flipping all the way over from doing to being. It's blending the two and marrying the two together, because you need both of them. And it's just a different philosophy of looking at it. Instead of starting with doing and trying to push a boulder up a hill, I'm sorry, that's exhausting to me. you know, but that's what our society is. It's like our culture, but also our ancestral lineage too. Our individual DNA and what's gone on in our generations within our family have been that way. You have to work really hard to be, successful. Well, I don't buy that. It's just like, no, that's the way they think about it because that's what they were creating. But yet that influence, even though it's not ours, we take that on as our own because we feel that that's the way things have to be. Do you understand?
I do. Yeah. It's there. It gets down to this very specific thoughts
Yeah.
about yourself, life, and other people. And when those thoughts are dysfunctional, that creates negative emotion. That creates actions that are energy draining, and then that creates burnout. That's the
Well, Kristen, the other thing too, it's like it's not even our stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's all inherited. It's not even our stuff. So it's number one, it's about being able to discern what's your stuff and what's not. And I teach people a very simple method and because I'm all into less is more, and you have to keep it simple because when you're in a being state, it really is simple. Life is really simple and not complicated. When we're in doing, we think we have to make it more complicated to be validated. That's totally counter to what I'm going to be sharing. So I tell people, and what's been helpful for me since I go into hospitals a lot, even now, and I'm so sensitive that it's like I'm like this Klingon that everything just, and if I don't like protect my energy field, yeah, I'm cooked. But it's just like I mindfully need to, before I go into a hospital, is just protect myself. And I usually say, if this is not my stuff, you need to leave my space right now in the laws of the universe, because the universal law says that we are here of free will. Okay. Nothing could come into our space unless we allow it. Now, taking that a step further, sometimes on an unconscious level, we're allowing it. But when you state that, in the law of the universe, you're not allowed to enter my space unless you're of a high vibrating light, that just kind of closes you off and protects you. And that's been very helpful for me because I still dabble in assisting in surgery. I've been doing it for decades, and that's one thing I love. I find it very fascinating, and I feel that energetically by me being there, it just helps people heal in a different dimension as well. I've been told by surgeons that they like it when I'm there because it's like things go better all the time. But it's the energy. It's the energy that I bring with me to help heal. It's a high vibrating love energy, and love is like the secret sauce to heal anything. So when you're in an environment where people are appreciated, because appreciation, everything has a vibration, even words. Okay. So, for an example, gratitude vibrates at a certain level, appreciation vibrates at a different level, and also love. And I'll just share this with you now. Just close your eyes and I'll take you through a little thing. So right now, just drop into your heart space. Excellent. So when I say gratitude, just feel what that feels like. And that nod when you have it. Okay, now I'm going to shift to love. Feel what that feels like. Probably feels different.
Yes.
Okay, now feel appreciation. Feels different?
Yes.
Okay, now feel gratitude. Okay, so did you notice that there is a drop in frequency from appreciation to gratitude?
Yes.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that people always say, do a gratitude journal. Yes, it's good to be thankful, but gratitude kind of limits the way I explain in a way I've learned it is that gratitude is almost like saying, "Oh, thank God this didn't happen." Do you know what I'm saying? I'm so thankful this didn't happen. I'm grateful this didn't happen. It's almost like the doom and gloom was avoided. Whereas when you talk about appreciation, I'm appreciative that that didn't happen. That just lifts it up higher. I've had the pleasure of working with some incredible people over my career, and recently, it's like energetically you attract the right people. So I'm very blessed that right now the group of surgeons that I work with, when I consult and stuff, they're awesome. They're aligned with who I am. So this one surgeon, God bless him, I love him to death. I knew there was something special about him until I didn't know him that well until I walked into his OR suite. And he is the most appreciative guy I've ever met. Anything that anybody does, it says, I appreciate you doing that. Or, if they ask him a question and it's not something he wants to hear, thank you for telling me that. I appreciate you sharing that with me. So it's like it welcomes people to want to give more.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it also makes them feel that they're valued, right? So I mean, it's huge, and I learned so much from him. And it's just like I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like in action, and I get to witness this. So it's like people love to work with him. When we work together, we have a fun time all the time. You know what I'm saying? And that is a great energy to have in an OR suite for that patient who's unconscious, who's still feeling everything on an unconscious level. Just because a person is anesthetized doesn't mean that they're not physically present there. They're just in another dimension experiencing. And that I've always known too, thankfully because of the work of Bernie Siegel, that, I had worked with him at Yale in the OR there. And it was just, I felt like, oh my God, it's just like, this is just incredible. Because I believe that, from a very young age, because there's so much that just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I think what we see in Western medicine, that everything is got to be black and white. Very, very few times do you see the shades of gray, and that everything needs to be put into a box. And what happens too is like, this is where you get, big pharma, the FDA, all the, the political people that have their hands in the pie, that it's really about, money, money, power, and, abuse of power. And they really don't care about people. It's just like there's many drugs out there that people, or many healing modalities that are out there, or simple healing, plant remedies that are out there, and people have created solutions for problems. Big pharma buys that up and puts it on the shelves, and they just continue forth doing chemical stuff and making people sick. And it's really a shame, because this is the quote evidence-based medicine Western medicine practices, and it's scary as hell. I'm going to share a real comical story. Being in my realm and being a solopreneur, entrepreneur in healthcare, and on the fringes of a lot of healing modalities, I'm very appreciative that I have a doctorate, so people don't think I'm cray-cray, because I'm credentialed and I've done a lot of work, but I've kind of dovetailed it in with what I do. And I had an anesthesiology colleague come up to me and says, Dolores, the stuff you do is not evidence-based. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's talk about evidence-based medicine that you practice. I don't think he was ready for what I was going to have to say. But I said, for example, let's take, Big Pharma. They have a new drug on the market. It's been FDA approved and yada, yada, yada. And it's launched. And then 2 years later, there's a class action lawsuit, and all these people are having these complications. I said, is this the evidence-based medicine you're talking about that you practice? And I said, I've done clinical research with my doctorate dissertation. I know about statistics, and I know they're manipulated all the time. For me, If one person has a positive result with what I do, that's enough evidence-based medicine for me. And I walked away. He didn't know what to say, but it was true.
Yeah. I mean, when I see these drug commercials on TV and they list the side effects of these drugs, I think to myself, how does anybody have the courage to put that in their mouth? Oh my
Well, they would be crazy too. That's where it's important that people need to listen to that inner physician. Your inner guidance system will tell you what's your next step if you allow yourself to reconnect and align with it. That's where that's where it's all about, going from the doing to the being. So what you do, so what happens with that whole thing, if you imagine an infinity sign going from, being to doing, when you're in being state, it's like self-awareness, mindful activity, anything you could do to get yourself planted in your physical body. Because when you're in your physical body, you're in present time. You're in the moment. You're right here, right now. It doesn't matter about yesterday. It doesn't matter about tomorrow. You're not in your head trying to figure things out. You're in your body. Taking that a step further, when you're in your body, you could connect with your emotions. Your emotions are your barometer as to what goes next. Look at animals in the animal kingdom. They're sensitive. They know when they need to hide and when they don't need to, and they know when to be afraid. Those are appropriate things of what they go by sense, energy. This is what we're training ourselves to do. I'm sorry, the animals kingdom is the more evolved species. It really is. They don't care about, the color of your skin or if it's a different animal species. They kind of all co-create together. What a great example for humanity.
Amen.
But I'm kind of segueing away from what I want to say here. So when you're in that mode of self-awareness and mindful activity could be anything from like knitting, crocheting, to coloring, to gardening, to sitting on the couch, stroking your favorite pet, anything that's going to allow you to spend time in your body is a self-awareness where you're able to connect with that inner knowingness. Sometimes when we are in that quiet space, we get this epiphany of something, or this hint like, I need to go someplace. I'm not sure why I need to go to this store, but I need to go. So you take that information and you go to the store, and just so happens that you run into a colleague or a friend of yours that you haven't seen in a long time, and they're saying, oh my God, I was just thinking about you and I wanted to invite you to some type of networking activity. And you go to that networking activity and it has a piece to your puzzle that you're looking for. Then you come back into that mindful thing, get your next step. Trust me, I've been an entrepreneur for, good 30 plus years. When I started my business, the first business I had, I was in the doing phase. Yes, I did all that. It was exhausting. I was successful, but it came at a cost. And people would say, well, why don't you start in it? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, hell no. If I have to do all this again, it was too exhausting. It's not worth it. So I decided I need to switch things up and make it different. So I'm working less, and it's more with ease and grace and being satisfied. So what I do every morning, and I joke about this, is like I sit in the boardroom, my mental boardroom with my CEO and everything else. And we sit in meditation for an hour or so. That's what I do. And it's like I get my information. I just ask the question, how can I best serve humanity today in, the most perfect way? And so I'll be in meditation, I'll get a hit, or, I'll start getting a message that, I start writing down verbiage or, like content. And then, I might even get a hit that, go for a walk today, go to the beach, go for a walk. I live close to the beach. And so I do. And it's just like, okay, I get even more information as I'm there. So what I'm saying is that you start from being first. Instead of start from doing, start from being. Get your information, go and do, come back to being, go and do, and come back. And I invite people to do that and play with it, because when you live from the being state, it's like you're aligning yourself so that you are you take better care of yourself because you get to know yourself so well that you know where your boundaries are. If you're not feeling it, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? If it's like, if you have an opportunity to go to an event and you're just not feeling it, then don't go, because it's like a waste of your time. You probably don't need to be there. And this is like following your inner guidance. Not every situation is for everybody. Not every opportunity is for everybody. It's knowing when to discern. And this is, and I think for a lot of people who are in healthcare, this is part of the issue. Okay. I also think that there's a lot of drama and chaos in organizations. And some people take that on as their own and feel like they have to fix it, or they think that if they don't show up, it's not going to get done. So, some people will not take a vacation forever. I think that's flipping crazy. I'm the type of person that's like, vacation, yeah, bring it up. Let's go now. Right. To me, it was about having my own freedom. That's why, I've been self-employed for so long. I found it very stifling as a new nurse in the early 80s, and up until I branched out on myself, that I would want to take a vacation at a certain time and I couldn't get it because what about and I'm thinking to myself, this is not working for me, because it's like I can't have them deem when I want to do things, and that's like taking your power away, taking your freedom. So I mean, for some people that works. For me, I knew early on that it was not. So I've chosen another venture. But I do see this because even as a healthcare entrepreneur, yeah, you could get burnt out. It doesn't mean that you're just in the hospital. It's like any type of healthcare thing, because you experience different things in different aspects of healthcare. Like right now, I think the biggest problems for people who are physicians, nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, anybody who has to deal with the insurance companies, is a holy nightmare terror.
Paperwork.
Well, yeah, for like getting hardly nothing. And then you have to keep submitting the paperwork. So to me, I realized that indentured servitude was a past life that I had and I lived, and I don't need to experience that any longer. So I decided that's it. You know what? I don't take any insurance anymore. And you know what? It's just like I do coaching and mentoring, and it's just like, no, it's cash pay, no insurance. And I haven't taken insurance for about 4 years because I just don't want to have to deal with all of that, because that was a stressor in itself. It was almost like creating PTSD for myself. And so where I'm going with that, it's like when your passion is creating PTSD for you, there's a problem. So it's about finding the ways that are going to work best for you. I'm actually speaking at a conference here in California for the California Renal Dialysis Association in California, and they asked me to speak on the topic of PTSD in the workplace, and I said, oh, I'm your person. Because I feel that people who really feel the effects of PTSD are empaths, intuitives, and highly sensitive people, because they take things on so much deeper than the average Joe. And as we know too, Kristen, is that PTSD is not just a war-torn thing. Military people experience that. It's across the board. We've all experienced it to some degree, in our lifetime. Be it, if you're a really sensitive person and maybe your parents went through a divorce, or they were always belittling you. It's like bullying activity could be PTSD for somebody who's highly sensitive, intuitive, and an empathic. So, how do we work with that? So it's learning how to do things differently so you could thrive instead of, be bombed on. And, I also feel too that, why is it in the military, when a lot of these soldiers come back, only a certain percentage of them have PTSD, and some people are never affected by it. So I've never seen research on this, but I'm willing to hypothesize that I would guess that those people are highly emotional, highly sensitive, empathic, and they just are wired differently. So that impacts them way deeply than the average Joe. I will put money on the fact that I believe that is true. It just hasn't been proven yet, but I think there's a link to that.
Right.
But so anyway, so that, the whole burnout thing.
What do you think about just that it's a norm in a hospital for a human to work a 12-hour shift 3 days in a row or something?
That's tough too, I think there's pluses and minuses to that because, when I started my nursing career like 40 plus years ago, 10-hour and 12-hour shifts were non-existent. It was like 8-hour shifts. So, you worked every other weekend pretty much, and you were on 8-hour shifts. Like you either had the day shift, the evening, or the night shift. I think, for some people it works out better for them because, instead of having to go there every day, it's like you kind of get it lumped into one section. So you kind of, be focused there for that amount of time, and then you have the rest of the time off. My issue is that if I have to be so involved for that period of time, I would have to really do something to ultra protect myself, number one. Number two is that I need to know that those days that I'm working that I can't do anything else because that's my own self-care. I need to go home and rest and recharge. But sometimes after 3 days, that day off you have after is like, a wash because you're just recouping from all of that. And, yeah, it's physical, but it's a lot of emotional stuff too. And let's put it this way, people sometimes are not civil to each other. It's not the patients, it's the people that are providing the care in concert with each other. Okay.
Well, the staffing issues are just,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. When I research nurse turnover,
yeah,
and the cost of onboarding a new nurse, and it's anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000, I'm getting really confused about how the numbers work out with the budget office, that they don't see that protecting the staff that they have, creating an enriching environment for the staff that they have, could be cost effective.
Well, we have to look at the realities of what's happening now too. When we look at, a lot of healthcare institutions, everything's state and federally funded, and there's I's that need to be dotted and T's crossed to get paid a smidgen of what they really need to get. So you have budgetary constrictions. You have, it's just like, I'm just going to give you this paint this picture for you. So here you are in the hospital, and it's just like, okay, so we got all these different practitioners there, and the hospital, has JACO come in and has to be accredited, and they have to jump through all the hoops with that, which always changes, and then it always goes back to what it was before. Crazy, really? So the point I'm making is that you have all this energy of stress because you have people at the bedside, like the nurses, afraid that if they make a mistake, they're going to lose their license or they're going to get fired. And then you have, the physicians who are in private practice that come into the hospital that, they don't know how they're going to make their overhead in private practice because the insurance rates for reimbursement are so low. A lot of these doctors have had to been absorbed by the hospital and become employees of the hospital, which is another thing because it limits their freedom and their flexibility to do what they would do to best care for a patient, because the hospital has certain you know, regiments in there and, you know, practice standards and stuff like that. And that varies from hospital to hospital. And then, you know, you have, you know, the administrative people that are afraid whether or not they're going to pass JACO or not, or, you know, whether or not they're going to get paid and if they're going to be operating in the red. So you have this whole creation or consciousness of stress, worry, anxiety. And so you have people coming into that energy to the hospital to get better. Really? So I always tell people, stay away from hospitals. They'll kill you, even in modern day. Energetically, it's a cesspool of, what do you want to call it, of negative emotion, chaos, and drama. Fear creates, you know, fear is not a positive thing. And we know on the bigger picture, law of attraction, whatever you focus on, you create more of. So for an example, if you're always worried about something, you're going to create more things to be worried about. If you're happy and you're content within yourself and you focus on that feeling of contentness and satisfaction, you're going to create more and more of that for yourself. It's that simple. People think that that aspect of fear is normal, and this is a normal life. It is not.
Right.
It's not. Being happy within yourself and being aligned with yourself, and I call it the 5 A's. It's like a lot of times we're not where we want to be. And so sometimes, you know, we want to be someplace else. We're all like that. It's just like, but what you have to do is you need to accept where you're at right now. Because when you come to acceptance, it's like it takes the charge away and it's like, okay, I'm here. This is not where I want to be, but I'm okay right now. Okay. So that's acceptance. And then just allow yourself to be there and just allow yourself to open up to receive the possibilities. And appreciate where you're at and what you have. So instead of having a gratitude journal, I tell people to have an appreciation journal. It's a lot different. And appreciate, you know, where you're at. So right now, I appreciate the fact that I'm sitting here having a conversation with you, Kristen, about, you know, a like-minded thing. I'm appreciative that I'm sitting in my beautiful home, and I'm appreciative that I just got out of bed and I was cozy and comfy for the whole night. Things like that, just be appreciative, because the more you're appreciative of things, the universe is going to send you more things to be appreciative of. And it works the opposite way when you're thinking negative or thinking gloom and doom, or I don't have enough money to pay the bills. Guess what? You keep focusing on that, you're not going to have enough money. You're going to create more opportunities to not have enough. It's that simple. People don't realize that. So once you have that, you start getting into alignment with yourself and alignment with the universe. So once you have that alignment, that's where your abundance comes. Your abundance of inner knowingness, your abundance of opportunities, your abundance of being able to have things just magically appear to you, which you're going to find that the more you live from this place, this is going to be the norm. It's not going to be the exception. This is actually the norm. We've been duped into believing this other stuff is normal. Yeah. Seriously. So it's time to shift that.
Well, that's one of the exciting things to me about what you've been able to do, because there is, I call it energy medicine. And I think ultimately energy medicine will replace the healthcare system.
Absolutely.
And that's why my mission is to create this well-being alliance for nurses to understand the energy medicine inside while working inside the healthcare system. Right. I just feel that if we had 100,000 or 200,000 nurses that were managing their energy in that space every day, it would make a difference.
Absolutely. I think you surmise that very beautifully, because it is energy. Everything is energy. People don't get that. And, you know, when you're, you know, how many times have we known things and we just have this inner awareness of it, but it hasn't been proven yet because technology hasn't advanced enough to that point, but it does eventually, and that it's proven. I just have to crack up when, you know, somebody made this announcement in the healthcare arena that forgiveness is a wonderful thing to heal your body. Well, no shit, Sherlock. We've known that for decades. Now somebody has proven that it's okay. I'm sorry. I get really facetious sometimes because it's the obvious, you know, it's so obvious that this is true, but yet nobody really is going to, you know, the Western medicine people aren't buying into it until it's evidence-based.
Well,
how's that logic working out for you?
But didn't MD Anderson, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, didn't they employ that couple that, I can't think of their names at the moment, but they were using visualization for cancer treatment.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember their names?
I don't, but you know, yes, that's, the mind is an incredible tool. And it's about, I'm not going to say taming it or controlling it, but it's like working in concert with it, with your emotions. There's got to be a marriage between the two. It's not this or that. I love heart math stuff. Are you familiar with heart math? Love, love, love their stuff because it's so true. It's like everything that, you know, there is a brain here. There really is. There's innate intelligence here. And it's our feelings and our emotions. And how many times, you know, people dip their toe in the pool of emotion and it freaks them out. And then they just kind of retract themselves, get back up into their head. They ignore it. They stuff it. They put it on the shelf. Well, I'll deal with it later type of thing. Yet those are pockets of energy that get stuck in our body. You know who's got an awesome program if you're not familiar with this, and I love his work. His name is Dr. Bradley Nelson, and he talks about the emotion code, body code. And he talks about how emotions that are unexpressed get trapped in our heart wall. Okay, say, you know, we've been hurt over something and it just really got to us and we've stuffed it, or we've, you know, held a grudge, unforgiveness and stuff like that. Those are pockets of trapped energy that are in our body that sometimes run things. Taking it a step further, when we talk about ancestral lineage and stuff, sometimes we have inherited emotions that we've taken on from our family lineage that aren't even ours, but yet we are taking it on to heal it unconsciously. So for, you know, sometimes I give the example, and I, you know, maybe you're have something similar happening too, Kristen, is that, you know, you work on your stuff, you work on your own personal growth, and you get so far and then you hit a wall. And it seems like you just can't move through that wall, but you know that what you want to manifest is on the other side of it. It's like trying to manifest with this whole cloud of inherited emotions that aren't even yours, but you're, you know, we're good at manifesting. So imagine removing that cloud of inherited emotions, and it's like a bullet line to your manifestation. So over generations, we could have, you know, hundreds of unexpressed or inherited emotions that aren't even ours. But once you're able to clear that out, and it's by using a pendulum and doing energy, moving energy that way, oh my God, it's life transformative. And so, you know, his name is Dr. Bradley Nelson. He's a doctor of chiropractic, but it's a body code, emotion code. And I love his work, and I implement it a lot in working with my coaching clients and, you know, even my patients as well. And I do it on myself too. And it's helped immensely, because when something's up for you, it's like, that's part of knowing yourself really well. And it's like, okay, I need to look at this from an objective point without a lot of emotion, because I'm feeling it. And sometimes, you know, when an emotion comes up, we feel it someplace in our body. And that's my barometer that, okay, I need to look at that. And, you know, it's like clearing out a chunk of energetic debris that is no longer serving me. Right. You know, so it you know, I think it's, for, I think people, if they're open and ready, they're the perfect people that, want to move forward. And, I feel that, teaching people in nursing school about this is I think would be a wonderful platform, because you're teaching these people before they even get out of what that's all about, the self-care and how to handle that and handle situations.
As far as you know, there's no self-care education in nursing school?
Not that I'm aware of, no. So, but I think it's really essential. And, I, being out here in California, we're the land of the fruit and the nuts, and the cray crays.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah. I moved here 30 years ago from Connecticut. I came out here on vacation and pretty much stayed. But I feel like I fit in here because, the way I think and the way I operate, this aligns very nicely for myself. So this has been my home for the last 31 years. And where I'm going with this is that when you are able to feel your emotions, it just, people think, yeah, if I feel my emotions, I'm going to open Pandora's box and it's never going to close. It's not that at all. When you're brave enough to take a step with that and be with that, the next step you're taking, you're almost outside of it and it comes to neutrality. It's that simple. And it's so necessary because there's so much trapped stuff in people's bodies that, yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any advice for me. I created this LinkedIn group called Nurse Wellbeing Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just interested in being a stand for nurses to understand energy medicine and to be able to use it in terms of healing themselves and preventing burnout.
Right.
I don't, as many entrepreneurs as there are people that have a calling to work in a hospital.
Right.
And I've read that 51% of new hire nurses are gone within the first year.
Yeah.
Some of them, I guess they're not suited, but I would like to serve this group that is seeing the burnout and looking for support and resources and alternatives. Yeah. How can I talk to them in a way that they'll understand what I have to offer could change their lives?
Well, I think that, God, that's a good one. If you approach it from, a lot of these people who are, the majority of them are, I'm going to say millennials. So they have a whole different, mindset. They're really not wanting to put up with the BS that a lot of us in my generation and previous generations put up with. They're really not wanting to work long hours. And I even see this through like the new doctors coming in. It's like they have a whole different mindset. They're not into like working hard like the generation they did before, and I don't blame them. They're looking more to have a quality of life. And I think the newer generation, the millennials, get that. I think a lot of them know that, but they just don't know how to put it into practice. So I think, where are you located? You're in
Dallas.
Dallas, okay. So there's a couple of things that I'm thinking. There's an organization called the National Nurses in Business Association, NNBA. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Check that out because I know it's more nurse entrepreneurs. That might be something to get involved with because you could post events and stuff like that. But I would consider doing a webinar, and somehow linking it with Eventbrite or something. So, and do a webinar, like a free informational webinar about that, and then kind of lead them into maybe group coaching or some type of coaching, and see how that goes. I mean, what have you been doing to start?
Well, I'm really just starting. I'm
Okay.
writing my book, and I created this group yesterday, so this is brand new. But
Oh, wow. Okay.
the question for me is, how do I speak about it so that it shows up like an opportunity and not something woo-woo or something to reject?
Well, I would definitely talk about quantum physics because that's a big buzzword. I would also talk about energy medicine. It's out, it's not really out there. It's actually more accepted now than it had been maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I would just, approach it from, like, do you feel like you take other people's stuff in? Like, I would approach it from like an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person perspective. Kind of read up on that because I have a funny feeling you might be one of them too.
Oh, I sure, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is like, and you've been a social worker, so you know what it's like to take on other people's stuff. You feel that. And so, I would definitely speak from your experience with it. I tell stories all the time from my experiences because people like to hear that kind of brings more authenticity and genuinity to the situation because they know that you've been there
Yeah.
kind of, and you know how, then it's an issue and you know how to help people maneuver through that. I definitely think your book is going to help for sure, having a book. And, I would just, if you could approach like human resources at different institutions, I would definitely see if you could put a program together before you do that. So, but start networking with people who are in like human resources at different healthcare places, hospitals, but also medical centers or urgent cares or, any type of thing, because a lot of times getting into hospitals could be a little tricky because they kind of regulate everybody who comes through the door. It's just like, so sometimes you just have to be creative. I definitely would encourage you to go into contemplative time and just ask higher source to lead you to your next steps, because then follow that, because it is probably not going to make any logical sense, but it'll be the right thing. Do you understand?
It's how I found you.
No, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the important thing is just, just knowing and trusting and being on LinkedIn, this too. It's like you connect with somebody and then somebody's trying to sell you something. I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? I do my best to weed them out feel wise before I connect with them, but sometimes I've been off and so this is really funny. I got to share this. This young lady who probably was in her 30s was going on and on about how great her product was and how enthusiastic she was. And I said to her, I'm not interested. I feel like you're trying to sell me. Well, no, I'm telling you how enthusiastic. I said, well, it feels a little, and she said, oh, thank you for telling me that. But it's like, it's a cookie cutter thing that people are taught how to do this. And it's an old paradigm and it's not working anymore. It's about, people don't, it's almost the equivalent of, hi, going out on a date. Hi, let's have a drink. Let's go to bed. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't even know you and you're trying to sell me. It's like, no, I'm not interested. Thank you very much. Yes. So, or they don't understand what you do and they say, hi, how are you? And then let me tell you all about myself. I really don't care.
Exactly. Well,
it's hilarious.
That might be watching this that might want to connect with you. How can they find you?
I could be reached at info@recoveringhealthcare.com. And they're free to call me at 760-579-2440. I also have, and I'm going to send you the link to this too, that you could be on this call. It's a free webinar. It's called Calling All Empaths, Intuitives, and Highly Sensitive People. And I do this webinar twice a month. The next one's coming up on March 6th. And it's at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's probably 7:30 Dallas time.
Yeah.
I tried to do it early on my time, because I have people all over the United States and North America coming on the call. So um, that is just to educate people on what's kind of going on. And, there's always, you know, other opportunities to work with me at the end of that as well. And it's been fun. I've met some very interesting people. I also do a live event here in Encinitas, which is just north of San Diego, once a month on a Saturday. And surprisingly, that might be something to reach out to people, Kristen, meetup, doing a meetup with healthcare providers who are going through that, and just start that way and just see what's a possibility and what their needs are. I think that's a great idea. Or and also, do you have Alignable out there? It's look this up, Alignable, Alignable. It's a free platform, and you could have your business site, but you could also post your events too if you decide to have a meetup or something. When I set something up like in a meetup, I blast it out to all Facebook and social media platforms, but also like Alignable and Eventbrite. I put it on Eventbrite if it's a free, Eventbrite's a great platform too, because they take care of, if you get to the point where you're going to be charging, they collect the monies for you and you don't have to deal with it. So those are all good things. And that's pretty much it. So, I have, as we were talking, I was thinking about, I have a colleague of mine who's actually a Unity minister, but had been in health administration, and her and I were working on a project together called 28 Days to Transform Your Nursing Career. It might be a good idea for you to connect with her as well. I kind of dabbled a little bit with that project with her. I'm kind of pulled myself out, but it's a 4-week platform. So it's like 5 separate webinars, and they get CEUs for it too, which is, that varies from state to state as far as what each state will allow. Like in California, you would think that doing any type of self-care stuff for the nurses would be embraced. No. If it has anything to do with that and not direct patient care, they're not interested. They don't understand that if your nurses show up healthy and happy, they're leading by example.
Not to mention putting that high energy in that space, like you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. So it's just like, so it's so interesting being where I'm at, because it's like I'm an observer a lot of times, and people are so close to the situation, they don't see the bigger picture of it. And it's like, so help me understand why you're not wanting to take care of your nurses who are actually taking care of your patients.
Yeah. Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So I will connect you with Reverend Sophia Falke. I think the two of you might have some synergy or something who knows what could come out of that. But I mean, I think there's a lot of people realizing that there's an issue, and it's about co-creating something that can really be of a benefit. Yes. And, even if it's available in different states, because she's in Nevada, I'm out here, and you're in Texas, is just like, it's kind of taking on an energy of its own in a good way. And, who knows who else could come on board with a piece of the puzzle as well. But I think it's cool that, you being a social worker, I'm a nurse, and Reverend Sophia was an administrator, and she's, a minister and a hospital chaplain as well. I mean, she has seen it from the different perspectives, so it's all good.
That would be great.
Okay. I will send you her information.